Blog Talk Radio.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I am Egberto Willies, your host, and we're going to have a good show. Let's talk about I don't want to call it the issue at hand because it isn't the issue at hand specifically, but it is disconcerting in the way it is covered. It is disconcerting in what these folks are doing, but most importantly, it is disconcerting because of what it tells, what cancer is living in the backwoods of the United States somewhere. What negative values are being placed out in the fore as we're seeing right now. But anyhow, Cliven Bundy is a rancher in Nevada. He believes the federal government is foreign. He does not pay taxes. He does not pay the required grazing fees required to have his cattle graze on federal lands. Cliven Bundy have continuously lost his case in court. Still, when the government went to seize his cattle for his $1 million bill, what did Clyde Davis do? Many from the right-wing militias from across the country came to his rescue, as if he needed rescue from the federal government. They came with rifles, sniper guns, and other weapons. They pointed these at our law and order personnel. On Thursday, Senator Reid said Clive Bundy and his thugs are domestic terrorists. What do you think? Do you think they're terrorists? Picture a group of Muslim men similarly equipped when the federal government attempted to serve a warrant in a mosque. Would the government have behaved as they did with Cliven Bundy? Or would they have gone in with blazing fire? How would it be covered by the traditional news media? Would they have a cheerleader like Fox News who continues to promote these freeloading lawbreakers? This is a serious affront on our democracy. Yet, the coverage by some outlets do not understand that they're playing with fire. Give me a call, folks. The telephone number is 66929 2495. And when you call in, please press 1 so that I can see that you want to speak. I want you to talk to me about this because, folks, I am lost. I am completely lost on this issue. I can't believe this is happening in America. But anyway, I wrote a blog post on this issue, and I posted it on the Coffee Party Facebook site. And here it goes. Anyone who followed Cliven Bundy ranch standoff should have been in shock. Citizens with guns and automatic weapons were spewed all over the highway and surrounding land. They had snipers with government law enforcement officers in their crosshairs. or scenes one sees in third world countries where orderly transition of government is not the norm. Yet, these lawless actions are being celebrated by Fox News and many on the right. When will the right wing step back into reality? When will they get over their anti-government derangement syndrome? When will they start supporting sane government again to ensure the well-being of the country? The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported the following. U.S. Senator Harry Reid on Thursday called supporters of Bunkerville Rachel Cliven Bundy domestic terrorists because they defended him against a Bureau of Land Management cattle rounded with guns and put their children in harm's way. Those people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists. Reid said during an appearance at a Las Vegas Review-Journal hashtag and headlines event at the Paris. I repeat, what went on up there was domestic terrorism, so says Harry Reid. Harry Reid called out the cowardice of the assembled militia. Reid accused Bundy backers of bringing their children to protest the BLM, and that's the Bureau of Land and Management, so that federal authorities might harm them, which would prompt negative headlines around the world and hurt the government's case against the rancher. There were hundreds of people from around the country that came there, Reid said. They had sniper rifles on the freeway. They had assault weapons. They had automatic weapons. According to Reid, some protesters said they had children and women lined up because if anyone got hurt, we wanted to make sure they got hurt first because we want the federal government hurting women and children. Others tried the same thing. Harry Reid describes Cliven Bundy perfectly. Harry Reid got it right. Cliven Bundy and his ilk cannot be considered anything but domestic terrorists. In the interview about Cliven Bundy, seems to accept Harry Reid's characterization. He himself says, yes, I'm a terrorist. Cliven Bundy does not recognize the United States. He considers the United States foreign. He does not pay his taxes. He does not pay his fees yet. These are the same people that talk about the takers versus the makers. Yet, his behavior is that of a moocher. Crystal Ball did an excellent piece on whether Cliven Bundy would be considered a patriot. I wanted to read that as well. If I don't get an immediate call, I probably will. Her decomposition of the definition of patriot was epic. Fox News is playing with fire, folks. They are giving a platform to a group that does not deserve it. They are running the risk of inciting violence by their misrepresentation of the facts and issues. They are becoming a part of the news. Folks, what do you think? Give me a call. 646-929-2495. Again, that number is 626-929-2495. And with me right now, we will start, as we start every week, with somebody I'm going to call my co-host, John. Come on in.
Egberto, good afternoon. How you doing?
Good afternoon, sir. How you doing?
I'm all right. I was wondering who you're going to have on your KPFT show on Monday. You have any guests lined up?
On Monday, I'm going. This story touched my heart so much that I wanted to go full-fledged on the story. In fact, the story that I blogged at Daily Kos this week is about Charlene Dill in Florida, and I'm picking up some other stories about people who are being materially harmed by those governors that decided not to take the Medicaid expansion to Obamacare. And I really want to hit that subject hard on Monday. So I'm going to have her story. I'll have a couple other stories that we're running on Daily Coast. And I'm going to try to contact a few people. I don't know if I'm going to get them to call in, because what I noticed, there was a particular young man who called me yesterday, and he decided that he wanted to take the Charlene story and some other stories to put on his blog and paper. And it turns out he's having the same situation, but he didn't want to, use his name, and he didn't want to tell his story. And he told me he's so sorry, but that is more the norm than I would believe. That many people want this stuff done, but so many people are just scared to come out and say, I want this.
Okay. On Monday, I made a reference to the Ukraine, and you were saying that we could have a debate about that on your show today, and I was wondering if you want to use part of the time to do that, or
you know
just
what?
want to go.
Absolutely, John. After we don't, this Ted Bundy thing, we don't have to spend all the time on it. I just want to give it some due coverage, because I think I want Americans to figure out the amount of coverage, and 414, I'm coming to you next, to figure out exactly what's going on here. Think about it. We went ahead and saw these armed snipers and all of that on American freeways. Tell me, if these were Muslims trying to protect their mosque, how Fox News and these other stations would be covering the news. These guys are covered at best as patriots, at worst as just some angry citizens. And I think it's a lot worse. I think it's a lot deeper than that. And I don't think the coverage for this is accurate based on what these guys are doing. I think this is an affront to our democracy. What say you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is, in a whole series of extremely surreal, things that the Republicans do, if you consider the skewing of the polls and Benghazi and all of these other, ridiculous things, the IRS scandal, that really, once you actually analyze what's going on, you can see there's nothing there. This is actually the worst, lack of critical thinking on the part of the right-wing media and on the part of people who are actually at the ranch. I mean, what are these people thinking? I mean, how could anybody defend this guy? I mean, I agree with you completely. He is a freeloader. And, one thing that I called in the Sam Cedar show, and they put it up on the net, it's a lot of YouTube hits, is D'Artagnan made on Daily Codes, made a blog, and they were talking about, how Americans for Prosperity, which is obviously run by the Koch brothers, the main funder is the Koch brothers, they're also, stoking these fears by putting up a hashtag Bundy Battle on Saturday. So, I mean, they're stoking all these fears. Of course, Fox News is doing that. But, I mean, where is the critical thinking? Can you not understand that people who break the laws, there has to be consequences for that? It's amazing. Like on Chris Hayes' show last night, he interviewed a lady who is I think is an assemblywoman in Nevada, and she was at the ranch, and what she was saying to Chris Hayes was, don't they, people shouldn't be going, with guns to take a cow, and that shouldn't be happening. And Chris Hayes agreed with her, and I was like, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, this happens every single day in America, in large cities. People who don't show up for court, people who are sentenced to go to spend time in prison, who don't show up, people who are suspected drug dealers, people who are suspected of domestic violence, people who are suspected of child abuse. Police go and try to enforce the law or see what is actually happening, and they are always armed. So, I mean, this whole idea that, people shouldn't be armed, and that what the government is doing is something beyond the pale is just so utterly ridiculous that I don't see how anybody could even believe it. It's fascinating. It's just incredibly sad to see how the right-wing media has latched on to us. I mean, even Glenn Beck realized that this is ridiculous. But, I mean, so many other people like Hannity and all the rest of Fox News is, really promoting this, and it is incredibly sad.
Absolutely, and it's so when you talk about something being un-American, John, this is something that we should be calling out as un-American. But stay with me, John. I got to throw 414 in, and I'm going to come back to you, John, in a little bit. 414, who do I have the honor of speaking with?
It's Bob from Wisconsin.
Hey, Bob, how you doing, my friend?
Okay, I think you're right. The activities that they are doing, that the Bundy and supporters they're involved in a kind of domestic terrorism. I think it's a differentiation between protest and armed protest, the difference between civil disobedience. I mean, that's not in the tradition of Thoreau to bring guns. The whole idea of breaking laws as being something that is legitimate to do, that's part of an American tradition, though. And that's sort of an important thing. With regards to Fox, just to sort of throw them off, they're not a news institution. They are entertainment and a right-wing propaganda institution.
Right.
They should be simply disregarded completely. However, I think there's an interesting sort of ambivalence that the American people may be facing with regards to what Bundy and et al. Are trying to do and what's going on in Ukraine. The folks in the Ukraine are armed protesters. They became armed protesters when they overthrew the corrupt pro-Russian regime in Kiev, supposedly to try to become a more democratic environment, and supposedly were in favor of that. But they were armed. They took over in the same way that the pro-Russian in the East have taken over with armed opposition to the Kiev, the interests of Kiev in the East. I mean,
let me stop you right there, sir. I'm going to let you finish your point because I think it's important, but I really wanted to interject this. That is why it is so dangerous for the way we embraced what occurred in Kiev. But continue, please.
Well, that's basically it. I mean, we haven't really gotten any reasonable position of consistency with regards to our position to armed opposition. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you sit there, I mean, people who protest in the United States, by virtue of the fact they are protesting and oppose certain activities which have a commercial interest, can be accused of terrorism, if I'm not mistaken. And we're dealing now with a situation where people who are armed in their protest are viewed as legitimate freedom fighters in our own country. I'm seeing a level of hypocrisy and contradiction it undermines any faith that I may have had in the American people to think rationally and to be able to act.
I want to hit you on that, my friend, Bob. I don't want you to. I hope that, John. I'm going to bring you in a second. I was hearing some breathing, is why I did the mic, but I'm bringing you in because I know you want to respond to that. But I have like 5 calls, but I'm not going to let it slide without you making your point, John, because I know your point is important. Now, Bob, I need to jump to 404, and then I'm going to get back to you, okay? 404, come on in. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
Oh, this is Bobby Rodrigo, and I'm so glad, Alberto, you asked me to call. I didn't know what your show content was today, but I am glad I'm talking to everybody on this call right now, and hello, everybody.
Hello, Bobby. Come on in, my brother.
What we're talking about here is scaring the crap out of me, people. First of all, for anybody to use, Harry Reid was ridiculous in calling these people domestic terrorists, whether or not they haven't done a crime. They haven't committed a crime, first of all. Domestic terrorism and a belligerent act is exactly what they they are trying to get us to fall for with the indefinite detention provisions of the NDAA. They're setting us up. Now, you don't have to agree with Bundy. You don't even have to agree with people who believe in the Second Amendment. But I'm sorry, and everybody knows, I am not the gun guy, okay? But I will not go against the Second Amendment because it exists. Now, if you don't like the Second Amendment, repeal it. But it is there. Now, as far as the Bundy issue is concerned, what the real issue is here that is not even talked about by anybody is that Bundy is saying that the federal government does not have authority on that land. He has a viable argument. If you look at the Constitution of the United States, people, at Article 1, Section 8, the line 17, it says that in order for the federal government to own the land, it has to go through a certain process. And he is saying that he will pay grazing rights to the state of Nevada. Now, I'm not telling you he's right. I'm not telling you he's wrong, and I'm not telling you the BLM doesn't have an argument. But do not tell me because the judge made a ruling that it's right, because I'll throw McCutcheon in your face, or Citizens United about judges making rulings. Do not sit here and tell me that people can't protest, because they can.
I am with you, Bobby. I'm with you I'm with you with half of your points as far as whether these guys have the right to these guns or whatever. And I am saying that this was a classic example of why the right to have guns indiscriminately as we have in this country is wrong, because of what that could have caused. Bobby, I have a whole lot of calls. I think you really made your point that you wanted to get across.
I know. I just want to say one more thing. Yes, thing, sir. Please, because it's very important here.
Yes.
When you start throwing the word terrorist around in this country, we have a law that says that they can put you in jail and not give you a lawyer, not put you before a judge, not charge you with a crime, have no speedy trial, have no bail. So when you start throwing around that word, you need to think about it, because protesting is a belligerent act on any level, and it was the BLM that showed up with the guns before Bundy's people did. Just so you know.
Yeah, now Bobby, I disagree with you on that one, but I'll bring it up further, maybe with other points that other people make. But thank you for coming in. I'm gonna put your mic on hold, but stay with me. I think this is a Skype call. Please come in, Skype. Who do I have the honor of speaking with? 11111. It has to be a Skype call, and your mic may be muted. Come on in, my friend.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. What's your name?
My name's Joe.
Hey, Joe, how you doing? Are you Joe, the person that gave me that information about the land?
No. What I want is to find out where you're getting your info from.
Which info, sir?
The info about the Bundys not paying this $1 million bill and that they haven't paid grazing rights. Where can I get a link to that particular info? That is a very good point you have here. And I will be very honest with you, okay? I picked up that from the Washington Post. What I should probably do is see if there is a government publicly available link that I can provide to that. So I think that's even the Washington Post. If you have a link to the Washington Post, I'll be glad to.
I will get it for you. I will get it for you, and I'll add it to the blog. Okay.
What blog?
Folks, and I should be saying this. On Facebook, you can always go to politics, look for the page Politics Done Right, and I'd appreciate if you'll give it a like as well. But go to the Facebook page Politics Done Right, and that is the avenue to get you to all the Politics Done Right shows, etc., etc., etc.
So you don't have it there now, huh?
No, but I'll put it there because you have a valid request. I should have done that, but I did not. So thank you, Joe.
All right, take it easy.
Thank you, sir. Now 541. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
Okay.
541. You're on.
Hello?
Yes. Who am I speaking to?
Robert Lester. He asked me to call.
Robert, how you doing? Robert, tell Americans what you found, please, because given that you found the information, I didn't want to just take it and read it. I wanted the person who did that to come on and say it. And John, I'm coming back to you in a little bit. Go ahead, Robert.
Okay, first, I'm not the one that found it. I'm helping share it. It's an acquaintance I know on a forum where we're discussing this in detail, and people can get a lot of detail on this there. Not only that, I lived in Nevada for 43 years. I hunted in BLM land. I fished on BLM land. And I see what BLM does and everything they do. It's public land. People aren't getting this. Without BLM land, people will be building houses on it. And people are getting all this misinformation. It is the minority of people, to be honest with you, I can say that. But if people really look into things, use their brains, and not just listen to just the right-wing media stuff, it's really hard, and the news is not sharing what's out there. Anybody can go to Ancestry.com or any kind of, the Mormons, they can find it through there. Look up the genealogy of Bundy. They were not in Nevada, like he says. They were in Arizona. It's all right there. I mean, I don't know if you can post it, but
yes, actually, I'm going to the all information that you provided. As soon as I know your friend is probably very accurate, but as soon as I just kind of go over it to validate it from my website, I'm going to put that up as well, sir.
Okay, yeah, anybody can. There's a whole genealogy there. The Bundys were in Arizona. They were back east before that. I don't have all this information in front of me right now. I'm really busy. I did want to call, though. Somebody pointed out BLM came in there carrying guns. That's their job. They carry guns. There's been Forest Service people. There's been BLM people shot because of this, things like this. They didn't go in there with guns blazing. They went in there because the guy has been, he said it. He says he does not, he doesn't, follow federal laws or the federal government. I'm wondering if he even pays taxes, if he says that. And according to other reports, he does not. He's one of those people that don't believe that the income tax is legal. Right. Well, okay, I know ranchers there that use the land, that pay the fees, and also I've seen firsthand by fishing and things and on the land, when you have a bunch of cattle there, too many cattle, they destroy the land. They do. It's not all about tortoises or what people say. You have too many there, it screws up the ecosystem. And I doubt many people have been to Nevada. And a lot of this, what a lot of people don't get because they're not from there. They don't know that they look at it like federal's taking over. They're not. Like I said, I bought a house there in East Sparks, which is right next to Reno, Nevada. And I purposely bought it as far east as you can go because it was next to BLM land, which will never be built on. I can't say never,
right.
But it will, and I wanted that land there. There were chukar, that's a game bird. There were antelope, deer. All these deer, and there's wild horses. That's another issue I wish I could get into because now people are trying to pull that up, saying that BLM is rounding up wild horses and selling them off for slaughter. I'll touch really quick on that. Yes, BLM rounds up the wild horses when they get overpopulated. But wild horses are a big tradition thing in Nevada. They will be there. They're protecting them. They put them in corrals and things, and they get adopted out. They're doing the best they can, and they've gotten even tighter on it. People that go adopt these horses, not BLM, are illegally selling some of them to Europe or everywhere else for dog food and for people food. And BLM is doing everything they can to stop that, and they've done big steps on it. So they're basically, when they're rounding up the horses, it's the same thing with the cattle. And not only that, when the horses, when they get overpopulated, there's not enough water, things for them. They're helping. They're not hurting anything. They're helping. And people need to go to the BLM site and see what they really do. But when I talk about hunting and things in Nevada with BLM, they put water troughs out there. They maintain them, and that's for the hunters. That's for people that hunt. It's to keep the populations of deer, antelope, bighorn sheep, wild horses, chukar, dove, you name it. They're keeping all these things there for our future generations.
Let me tell you something, Robert. It really upsets me with this anti-government rhetoric that we constantly get. We forget the most important thing, and that is the government is we the people. And what is the value of a BLM just out there doing wrong or hurting people? And if they are, it is something that we fix. It's not something that we go to war at with, a militia or a group of militiamen trying to attack the government. Otherwise, law and order breaks down. But, Robert, I want to jump back to, is there anything else that you have to say specifically? Because John is urgent to come in on Ukraine. So come on in and tell me if you have something else that you want to say on that.
Just real quick, there's a lot. Like I said, with the BLM, when people are saying things like that, they're just wrong. They need to educate themselves. They need to see what's really going on there and what they do. And if you look it up, BLM is not federal land. It is public land. And they're protecting all of this land for our future generations. And the whole thing with the Bundy, that's just another Waco waiting to happen. It's not the government's fault doing it. The guy broke the law. He broke the law. He states it. And when people call him terrorists, yeah, look up the definition of terrorist or terrorism. I mean, I'm not lying. Look it up yourself. What they are doing then with the guns on the bridges, pointing directly down at the crowd, it's that's the reason BLM left. They didn't want anybody hurt. And they were scared. They were scared for their lives, you know. Who wouldn't be with the guns, AK-47s, whatever, AR-15s pointing at them? So that's why they left. They didn't want anybody hurt. It wasn't a victory for anybody. But the guy broke the law. The guy broke the law. He's breaking the law, and he's spitting in people's faces. And these are militia people and everything. They're joining in. It's just another little thing that they can try to use, and they're putting all this misinformation out. I just have people go to BLM. Oh, the Nevada cattlemen. Look at the Nevada cattlemen. Look at what they said. You know, that's all people need to look at is the truth.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. I'm going to put your mic on hold so I can get back to John. But before I want to say something, if you want to know the character of these people, on my blog post the blog post that I did where I actually made some mention about this guy being a terrorist, they talk about, and these are the actions, and Bobby Rodrigo, this is what I wanted to mention when you actually are concerned about us calling them terrorists. These guys specifically went on Fox News on TV and said, we are going to put the women and children in front to take the bullets so that the media can see the government shooting at our women and children. That is the same thing Al-Qaeda does. That is the same thing all these other groups that is it by definition an act of terror, because you want to make by showing massive infliction of death, maiming, and attacks on people. But thank you very much, Robert, and you can please stick around for the show, but let me go to John. John, I know you're itching to come in on Ukraine, my friend, so I know you want to answer Bob in Wisconsin, so please go for it, my dear friend.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing as far as misinformation that's been put out by the Putin administration and all of his, dupes is that this was a violent overthrow of the government in Kiev. And I just, what I want people should do is to actually, Google, use your favorite search engine and put in the dates that the violent protests happened, which were the 18th of February, the 20th of February, and the 22nd of February. And if you do that, you will see that Yanukovych actually had a deal that was going through after the most violent days on the 20th. Okay, so he had a deal that he struck with European diplomats to hold the election an earlier day. And so what happened from the morning of the 21st to the evening of the 21st is basically the Berkut, which were his paramilitary police force, abandoned him completely. And that's why he fled. He didn't flee because he was forced out by violent revolutionaries. I mean, I'm not saying I will condemn Swoboda and I will condemn the right sector, and I did that a month ago. And I'm not saying that it's right to take over buildings. It's not right to do that, and I condemn that also. And they did do that on the morning, or they tried to do that on the morning of the 18th. So you can't condemn the whole movement because certain people tried to be violent, and they were not successful. The whole point is, on the evening of the 18th, is there was this immense backlash from the Berkut, and they basically, cleared the square in the Maidan. And so there were massive, there were lots of deaths, and so that's what actually happened.
John, here's the problem. I am not disputing anything that you're saying. I mean, you have your facts straight. You always have your facts straight. My dispute is with the analysis of that material. When I say the analysis of the material, and this is where I think we disagree, I think it's a slippery slope, because there are certain there's revolution, right, that you have, and you have to decide if you're going to have a revolution or not. And if you're going to have a revolution, you have what you have in Ukraine right now, and everybody that's revolting, meaning the 20% of Russians in the eastern side
that they don't want to be a part of this new government. Then at that point, once that revolution occurred in Kiev, if there are Ukrainians that are revolting as well on the eastern side, it is all fair game. And my contention is that look, we are not in disagreement with the corruption that occurs in Ukraine still. And it doesn't matter who even the person that took over right now is a corrupt entity. But we're not, that's not of discuss. What I think is of this discourse right now is process. And the process that was used by those in Kyiv opens the door for what's occurring in the East right now. And whether it was orchestrated by Putin or not, they allowed themselves to be used in that manner so that Putin can actually have plausible deniability. And once you give a leader, corrupt or otherwise, plausible deniability, we gave Bush plausible deniability. Look at what it got us. And the next, so my thing is not, our disagreement isn't about these are bad people, because these are bad people. Our disagreement, I think, is with process. And I am very concerned about the process. I'm very concerned about the Americans' role in that process as laid out by Robert Parry in not one article, but in several articles at Consortium News. So, I mean, we have to remember what traditional media had done to us before. So a lot of times we have to get beyond that. I know you took exception with me on Monday when I pretty much wanted to disregard the traditional media, and I think I was a bit too strong in saying we need to get rid of them. But my thing is that we have to get to a point. And Bobby, I see that you cycled. I'm coming to you next. My thing is that we have to be measured and researched in what we're doing. You're very well researched in the information that you're putting out. I would love to come to some sort of a consensus on how Ukraine could be solved, because I don't think there are any good folks in there. John.
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about Robert Parry. I mean, I think he uses the same psychological tactics that Fox News and other right-wing talkers use, and that tactic is it basically saying, I'm the only one who espouses the truth. The truth is he has no proof, no evidence that the Americans manipulated the Ukrainians to do this, whether you call it a protest, a revolution, whatever you want to do. There's absolutely no proof of that. Zero. In fact, there's tons of material on the internet. You can just go to the Guardian website and you see people being interviewed constantly. And of course, Putin was saying this as soon as the thing started. I mean, this is the typical Soviet line. The West is controlling everything. And the fact are, these people are tired of the corruption of Yanukovych, and most of them weren't violent. In fact, the violence even on the 18th, the violence. Nobody had guns. They did try to take over buildings, and I said that's wrong, and it is wrong. And if things would have happened the best way, Yanukovych, probably would still be in power, and they would have had the earlier elections. But it's hard for me to understand. Living in America, how bad things are in the Ukraine. I mean, I can read statistics and I can read about the corruption, but the people there are the ones that led it, not the CIA. I mean, that is a complete fallacy, and it's ludicrous.
John, let me just say one thing, okay? And this is where I think perspective may differ and life experience may differ. You see, I'm from Central America, originally Panama, and the stories that people and my general apprehension with the storyline has to do with the general storyline that was given in Panama with the invasion in 1989, with how people were killed, how it got started, the orchestration of actually getting the military involved. I am used to that. I'm used to the reality that born Americans that I was born in Panama. I'm a naturalized American citizen. I came from a place where I've actually seen these things happen. My father was running under the bed when the bombs were flying. So I have a little different perspective when it comes to the damage that a major power can have on a little country. I was there when they closed down the economic system in Panama for spite. Something like what has happened I can't say that for Ukraine quite yet, but I imagine it would be happening shortly. But John, stay with me. I'm going to leave you open. Bobby wants to come back in. Rodrigo, come on in.
I'm just amazed at some of the comments that I'm hearing relative to Nevada, and I wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I don't watch Fox News. I never have. I don't watch MSNBC either. They're all entertainment media. They're owned by 6 companies worldwide. The majority of our media, they tell us what they want to tell us. I know media people that have worked for them, that have left them, that have blown the whistle against them, like Amber Lyon, for example. Personally know these people who 3 Emmy awards, and because she was trying to tell us the truth about Bahrain, and she blew the whistle on CNN, she left, so she could start telling the truth. Matt Taibbi, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for because he's a real journalist, just left Rolling Stone to go work with Jeremy Scahill and Glenn Greenwald. So please, I just want to point that out. I also point out that I do not have a position on Bundy's not credibility, on whether or not he is right or wrong. What my point is that he is making an argument that has some basis in law, period. I don't care about how long he lived in Nevada. I don't care about all the rhetoric. I don't watch Fox News, so I wouldn't hear any rhetoric. I certainly don't watch Alex Jones or Glenn Beck or WMBD or any of those. I do read a lot. But I'll tell you this. I personally know at least 10 people that are in Nevada at that place right now. Some of them are reporting it with boots on the ground personally. Some of them are there supporting him, period. And I support them for stepping up and protesting. There's no way that these people are terrorists. They're not terrorists, period. The terrorism, and I know what the definition of terrorism is. I was a veteran. I know I have police training. I have a law degree, and I belong to the organization, the biggest organization in the world that is fighting against the indefinite detention provision of the National Defense Authorization Act. I have a very good grasp of what terrorism is and what this government is trying to do under Bush, under Obama, with our Congress. All I'm saying to you is you're doing the same thing that the right did to the gentleman that came out so strongly in support of Occupy. Remove the guns for a minute. They're so strongly in support of Occupy because they didn't believe that Occupy had a valuable or legitimate reason to be protesting. And so people who understand what freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and the right to protest and the right to make an argument agree. And I'm telling you for a fact that the BLM showed, I don't care if they used guns or not, they had snipers, they had SWAT team. I got pictures from people who were there before the militia ever came. Now, that might be the way they do their job, that's fine. I have no issue with the rule of law. But do not sit here and tell me that this government, the way it is right now, and has been for a long time, and the things that all of us on this show talking right now fight, if you think about it, what we are fighting, you talk about anti-government, that's what we fight, is what the government is doing to us. If you want to do identity politics, then you're missing the connections. We're supposed to be reaching across the aisle. So, okay, yes, I like to vet facts. Like I said, I'm not telling you that Bundy's right on his issue of the federal government has no authority to collect grazing fees from him. That's his issue. I don't care about the rest. I don't care about the solar thing. I don't care about the mineral rights thing. That's not even the area. That's the reality of that. That's not even in that area. What I care about is that man's right to make an argument. And just because a judge said that he had to go, how many years ago for the first time? Just because a judge says that McCutcheon, we should have that money is speech, just because Citizens United says that, just because the Supreme Court says corporations are people, I'm sorry, people, that they're not. So don't sit there and tell me that because a black robe says something, it makes it real. It's not
John,
the case.
I'm coming to you, John. It's the reason I silenced your mic, John, is because there was a lot of breathing in it, but I'm coming back to you in a little bit. Bobby, look, we are in agreement in so much with respect to the NSA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I could never, ever endorse the activity that I saw at the Bundy Ranch with private citizens in this era. I'm saying if our government was to become completely and entirely corrupt to some point, maybe. And I'm not even, and I don't know what that point is, but I'm saying that action, and that is where I think I cannot agree with you. I cannot agree with you when I don't see that you don't see the possibility that having private American snipers with AK-47s and crosshairs on a street, on a freeway, that's open to everybody with this type of
sucks. I think it sucks. Totally.
I know
don't disagree with that.
Bobby, I know you. And that's why, personally speaking, friend to friend, I am thinking that, and I say that with the most respect possible. I think that your correct attitude towards the NSA and the government's infringements in a lot of our rights, the things that you are fighting with Panda, those items, to some extent, it may be clouding some of what you're saying with respect to Bundy. That's my personal opinion, and that's
possibly. But you know what? I'll tell you this, okay? We all know, when it comes down to action. So let's think about this for a second. All right, we had 150,000 American citizens put in a camp without any law, without any constitutional support, without any due process, etc. It happened in 1942.
Bobby,
American citizens.
Bobby, you made your point. I need to go to two other calls. I need to go back to John, but before John, I need to get Bob to weigh in. But stay with me in case we have some more time that we can get on. I just want to be kind of sharing the space here. Bob, do you have anything to address with respect to what John mentioned before in Ukraine?
Well, yeah, I really wasn't. I guess
John mentioned before in Ukraine.
What, are we still on?
Yes, we are. We're on.
Okay, I've apparently got the wrong. Hang on, I'm having a problem at my end. I'll take care of it briefly. There, I should be clean now. Sorry.
Right. Also, you may have been listening to a podcast.
For a while, yeah, but I should be back. I should be live now. In any case, well, first off, is there a chat with regards to this particular program or not?
Yes.
There
is a chat. And in fact, I'm in chat with quite a few people right now in the room.
I'm unable to get to it. I'll keep on working on that aspect.
Yeah,
anyway,
make sure that you're clicking on today's show.
I didn't appreciate completely the fact that, well, actually I did. I knew that it was the old regime in Kiev that had perpetrated unspeakable violence toward the protesters by, putting up the snipers and shooting the protesters in Kiev. And that sort of justified the removal of that government in my mind. And to know that the people, if I'm not mistaken, those folks that did shoot the protesters in Kiev are going to be prosecuted is a very positive thing. And I personally believe that what happened in Kiev was justified because of corruption of the previous regime, and I would hope that they would be able to go forward. However, when we sit there and look at what's going on in Utah, or what's as far as being a terrorist here, I think it was classic that they brought their women and children, as you said. They were using them as shields, which is unconscionable. It's just it's unbelievable. We would not accept that from anyone else. Anyone who does that is viewed as an incredible coward. And to sit there and hide amongst the population as they do in Afghanistan they're all terrorists in that respect, and they're just fighting an opportunity. We are talking about asymmetrical warfare. The fact of the matter is, the man, meaning the government, has the power to begin with. They come in armed because that's their definition. That's the way they see their job. They have the ultimate force available. And to countervail that, I can see a point behind the Second Amendment people saying, hey, we can't allow this. I'm very afraid of a police state. I figure with the oligarchy we're looking at, that they're going to have the cops on their side because the oligarchs are going to be paying the cops. and you pay
Bob.
You play tune the piper. You play the tune that the person who pays the piper calls. And
exactly.
If they say suppress the opposition, that's what they're going to do. And they're going to use all the resources they have, and one of their resources, by virtue of being called law enforcement, is the power of weaponry.
And that is why Bobby's job, the job that Bobby is doing with Panda and these other things are important. But I think what the plutocracy does is it creates incidences where we have to make false choices, and I'm never willing to make false choices. I think Bundy is not the representation that we should be using as a government that is overreaching. He is the wrong person. But I need to bring John in now. John, as I said, I had to blank your mic because of the breathing that was in it. But come on in, John. I know you have something to say.
Yeah, I just want to address Bobby on a couple of points. He seemed to contradict himself on the point about whether Bundy actually has a case. I mean, first he said he did, and then I think later on he said he didn't. But Bundy has absolutely no case. I mean, this was federal land. Land has never ever been owned by the state. Ever since the land was taken, it was a territory first. Even before it had statehood, this was owned by the federal government, meaning all of us. So, I mean, that point right there is utterly ridiculous. He has no point at all. The federal government does own that land. There is absolutely no question about it. And I haven't heard anybody make any kind of cohesive argument that the state of Nevada owns that land. Okay, another thing is Ian Millhiser wrote in Think Progress on Monday, and this is what he's talking about. He says, criminal charges for threats to federal officers, as federal law provides, he is a constitutional lawyer, says federal law provides that anyone who threatens to assault, kidnap, or murder a United States official, United States judge, or a federal law officer with intent to impede, intimidate, or interfere with such officer, judge, or law enforcement officer while engaged in the performance of his official duties and with intent to retaliate against such official, judge, or law enforcement officer on account of the performance of official duties may be fined or imprisoned up to 10 years. So if Bundy and his supporters
that is a good thing you found here, John. That is an important thing that you found here. I dropped that on my page. I didn't even look. I didn't even think about that when I was writing my blog post. But that is such an important thing. You in order to maintain law, you have to ensure that these guys are protected as well. Now we know, and I know where Bobby is going to come back on. What about when the law is owned by the plutocracy or the oligarchs and whatever? That is a balance that we have to find. You have anything else to add to that, John?
Well, I mean, that's also a ridiculous argument because, I mean, the fact is we have to live by good laws and bad laws.
Exactly.
The idea of protest is we want to change the bad laws, and so that's the whole point. And the fact that anybody who has a court case against them could use the same tactic that Bundy would use, and that's the precedent. That's what makes this so dangerous. Is the precedent that it sets, and the precedent. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
The precedent that Fox News and all these other people are making is just so dangerous because there's going to be more violence. And in fact, I mean, what I think should happen, and Mike Papantonio and other people should have talked about it, is they should just seize his assets. That's simple. I mean, that way there won't be any violence. Just take his money. The court has said twice that he owes the money. And, this happens all the time. This happens for people with medical foreclosures, medical bills that they don't have money to pay, but they have money in the bank. This happens, medical bankruptcy is what they are. I mean, this happens all the time. If you have the money and you're not paying your bills and a court has said, twice that you've been convicted of this, they can seize your money. I mean, it's that simple, and that's what they should do. And they should also hold them in contempt of court.
I think they should also find that guy who we saw pointing the gun, the crosshairs at these guys behind the freeway. I think they should find him and use a piece of law that you just mentioned there and take care of it. Because I tell you what, embolden these guys will actually be dangerous for us all. Here in Texas, the militia movement that's rampant throughout the rural areas makes many of us rather scared. And it's not that we are wimps. We just know that, first of all, a lot of the brains behind these, there's not a lot upstairs in a lot of the brains behind these guns, and they act first and think later. But when one person is killed, the thinking later is not helpful. But thank you, John. Bobby, I only have 5 minutes left, so this is going to be your closing statement. Then I'll go back to the other folks' closing statement. Close out for me, Bob.
First of all, I never said that. I never was contradictory. I said Bundy has an argument. What people need to do is read the Constitution. I'm sorry. It says it very clear. In order for the federal government to own land, it has to go through a process. And Lincoln, President Lincoln, went and expanded federal power by doing a land grab as well. History is replevin with this stuff. But the Constitution is very clear on how this process works. You don't just get to claim that it's public land or federal land or whatever and not have a process. He has asked for a process. That's number one. Number two is he's never been convicted of anything. It's a civil matter that's been going on. He hasn't been brought before the court on criminal charges. So when you talk about facts, please talk about facts. My point is very simple. People have the right to protest, and using the word terrorist in this situation, as far as Bundy is concerned, is incorrect. As far as some of the people that might be out there doing things, I'm not going to say one way or the other because I'm not there. Now, I think that due process is what matters. That's all I can say.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Keep calling and keep coming to the show. John, your closing. Wait, let me go to Bob first. Bob, give me your closing statement.
Well, basically, I think to some extent he's right. Terrorist is being used way too freely and too not carefully enough in the United States. The difference between opposition and protest and terrorism needs to be more carefully understood and given greater respect. Protest is respected, and the fact is that the protesters are the ones who are being intimidated by law enforcement, generally speaking. And I am seriously concerned that the powers that be have law enforcement on their side, and very frankly, the courts do not necessarily make determinations that are in the public's interest, but are in the interest of those in power. So I'm not too thrilled about the idea that the courts are the ultimate arbiter of righteousness in the United States. I'll leave it at that.
I have to agree with what you just said about the courts too, my friend. Bob, okay, John?
I just want to say that the federal government has always owned this land. There's no dispute. I mean, he's saying there's a dispute that they had to go through this. Nobody's ever disputed this before. I mean, the ranchers, the guy before was, called earlier, he made great points about the BLM. I mean, most people abide by these laws. They get lower rates than other people pay to graze their cattle. It's just patently absurd what you're talking about. And besides, and when you're convicted of not paying something, it is a criminal offense. That's the reason why you're paying a fine. I mean, you may not be thrown in jail, but it's a criminal offense against you if you owe $1 million. They wouldn't be collecting it. It's just, I just can't even believe that the arguments that are being made here. They're just so,
closer up for me, John.
They're just so ludicrous, and I just hope that Fox News can tone this down, and that he. But I also want to see people actually making a movement to confiscate to confiscate his money. That's what needs to happen.
Got to go, folks. Folks, Coffee Party has 4 radio shows. Progressive Politics Tennessee Style on Sundays at 3 p.m. Press 1 for Democracy with Dan Aronson on Mondays at 10 p.m. And these are Eastern times. Lunch with Loudon on Thursdays at 3 p.m. And, of course, you're with me, yours truly, Politics Done Right, Saturdays at 1 p.m. Please check out my show on KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, Texas. And you can also stream it at kpft.org. Again, thank you very much. I know your time is valuable. Thank you very much for spending some with me. You guys have a wonderful time, and we'll continue the discussion. And as you can see, we don't all agree on everything, but that's what it's all about. Come together and come to some consensus. Have a wonderful day, and let's coffee party on.